now it was time to go to the North Pole. And he says that he was horrified and just felt that he was in bizarro world because according to local law, you're not allowed to leave the town without a gun because of the polar bears. So, contrary to the way the rest of us are living, where they're trying to get guns out of our hands, they're like pressing guns into your hands and be like, don't leave without one. So he says it was really cold. Surprisingly, at the North Pole, it was just brutal. 30 degrees below zero. And their little trip was delayed by some days because of the coldness. And he was concerned because Willie's wedding's any day now and he can't be late to it. And, just feeling sour that he even has to factor it into his planning. So he says that one of the greatest detriments to your comfort and survival is getting too hot through physical exertion and then sweating, and then that sweat's going to freeze on you and then you're going to have frostbite. Well, according to him, he says no one even told him that was a possibility. Okay, well, first of all, could you not surmise that the beads of sweat on your face would freeze instantly when you walk outside and your eyes are already freezing? Stands to reason that the difficulty that you're feeling to breathe as your lungs freeze inside of you at 30 degrees below zero and as your eyes are freezing at the corners, that you would realize that sweat is probably also going to be your true arch nemesis in this scenario. He doesn't put two and two together. He says that other people were told about this, but no one bothered to tell him. He didn't get the debriefing. So as he's pulling these sleds through the snow, these super heavy sleds on this walk and just drenched in sweat, he had no ability. He did not have the knowledge to realize that this was dangerous. Well, as he's sweating and he's realizing that his ears and his fingers are freezing and he's getting frostbite. What I think is weird is he makes this big point about how the sweat is what was going to give you frostbite. But I'm like, were you sweating on your ears and fingertips? That's just where you'd get frostbite. That's kind of thing. It's got nothing to do with the fact that somebody failed to give you information you needed. That's just where it happens. Anyway, so that was bad. And he says he didn't complain. He wants to let you know that. Well, who are you going to complain to? A bunch of amputees who are also out here suffering the same things you are? Who exactly were you thinking would hear it anyway? So big whoop that you didn't complain. Anyway, unfortunately, on day 4, he had to leave because William's wedding. And generously, the pilot that was with him did fly him to the North Pole because he's like, oh, you're so close, you got to see it. So he gets to see the North Pole, plant the Union Jack, or hold the Union Jack, I don't know. He says he was just holding it. Then they go off, and he goes to the wedding. Okay. Now we come to this part of the story where I'm just like, what that you gave your brother the same respect that you gave to the Auschwitz survivor? Because you just keep on trying to make him look like this just total loser. You keep trying to make us believe that he was just, that there's no redeeming qualities about him. He says that on the night of, the night before the wedding, all the men were together and, they were having some drinks, and they had plied William with a couple of rums and cokes because he was nervous. He had all these jitters going, and so they thought that they would help him. And he also says, he wants to let you know that you might have thought he was the best man. Well, you were lied to. He was not the best man. Nobody trusted him to be the best man. They thought he was going to say something stupid, and he probably would have, okay? Yeah, they couldn't trust him. He'll admit it. But still, the fact that you were led to believe that he was the best man is a shame that you're always being lied to as the public. It's just one more lie that he's going to have to tell you that you've been forced to believe. He says that William's best men were actually 2 guys named James and Thomas, who are a little bit quiet and reserved, and the reason that they did not let on that Harry wasn't the best man is that they were trying to protect James and Thomas. Because if anybody found out that they were best men, then the press would descend. This is Harry's explanation. Anyway, they're plying William with drinks, and he takes his time to tell us that his fingertips and his ears had been frostbit, but they were healing. unfortunately. Upon arriving home, I've been horrified to discover that my nether regions were frost-nipped as well. And while the ears and the cheeks were already healing, the todger wasn't. Oh, gosh. Why does he tell us this? And then he goes on to talk about the fact that, you know, he didn't mention it to any of the guys at the party. Thanks for that. I mean, how are you going to just sit there and be like, sitting at the table being like, by the way, you guys, I'm having a lot of problems in my areas. Like, what are you going to say? How are you going to bring that up anyway? But he's like, I don't know why I should have been reluctant to discuss my penis with Pa or all the gentlemen present. It was a matter of public record, and indeed some public curiosity. The press had written about it extensively. There's countless stories in books and papers, even the New York Times, about Willie and me not being circumcised. Mummy had forbidden it, they all said. And while it's absolutely true that the chance of getting penile frostbite is much greater if you're not circumcised, all the stories were false. I was snipped as a baby. Okay. Well, you're annoyed that the public has this rabid curiosity about your manhood. But it's like, why are you feeding the press more stories that you think it's disgusting they'd want to hear in the first place? Classic Harry. It's like, all he ever does is say, why does the press want these stories about me? Let me shovel them to the press. It's like when he was saying, everybody says I'm just drunk and falling in the streets. And then he'd go and be drunk and falling in the streets. And now with this, like, you know, the press is always so weirdly curious about everything. Even down to that detail about me. Okay, that is weird. I would say that's odd. I don't know why we care about what's going on with you. That sounds like a personal situation to me. But then why are you feeding into that and being like, you guys always got it wrong, by the way. You guys were always wrong about my todger, okay? Let me just set the record straight about that. I was circumcised. What business is it of ours if you were or weren't? Who cares? I don't care. It's like, why are you telling us this? Truly, why are you? If the press is so out of control and always digging up all this stuff about you that doesn't matter, why don't you give us a book full of stuff that matters instead of more stuff on the same level that you condemn them for being interested in? Harry doesn't make any sense. Harry doesn't make any sense.